Good morning. It's a pleasure to start the first webinar of the year organized by Biosafety Office from regulatory issues from the University of Luana, together with the Foundation Osvaldo Cruz, Fiocruz, and Fiocruz Network of Biobank and Global Health Network, Latin America and the Caribbean, to guarantee the good working of the seminar. We would like to suggest the following. We should enter using your personal link that was sent to you when you started during this session. We would like to remind you that you should stay on at least 70% for the duration of the event so that you can receive your participation certificate. Use the Q&A box in the lower part of the Zoom platform to ask your questions to the speakers. Avoid using chat for technical questions related to the presentations, please. By the end of the presentations, the speakers will respond to the selected questions. Thank you for your help. We hope this is very fruitful to all of you. To start the event, I have the pleasure to present Mrs. Cynthia Hurtado-Stein, Director of the University Direction for Regulatory Issues from the University of Cayetano, a university in Peru. She will speak some welcoming words and will present the speakers. Thank you, Henry. Good morning or good afternoon. It's an honor to me to welcome you all to our first webinar of the year. Now we will discuss management and organization of biobanks, Fiocruz Experience. This event was co-hosted by the Biosecurity Office, together with Osvaldo Cruz Foundation, Fiocruz, from the Biobank Network and Global Health Network for Latin America and the Caribbean. The objective of this event is to provide clear knowledge about management and organization of biobanks through Fiocruz Experience, presenting good practices, challenges, and how to handle biological material, and foster the interchange of knowledge between our different experts and strengthen quality standards in safety issues in biobank. Fiocruz, as a reference institution in public health and investigation in Latin America, have developed a solid biobank management model, and their experience provides valuable lessons in terms of norms, infrastructure, and safety of the samples. These are key elements to guarantee the quality and traceability of the material in store. So this event is a unique opportunity so that investigators, managers, and professors of the area can exchange knowledge and adapt successful strategies to their own context, promoting the consolidation of well-structured biobanks aligned with international standards. Today, we'll have the participation of 4 experts in biobank that will share with you their knowledge and their experience about the importance of biobanks and their implementation. I'd like to thank you for your time and your interest. And at the end of the presentations, we will have time for questions. Now I have the honor to present our first speakers, Diane Sertorio, who is Executive Coordinator of Fiocruz Biobank Network, and she will speak about Biobank in Fiocruz, implementation and challenges. Then we have PhD Sara Benevenuto, who is a coordination assistant to Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, and she will speak about harmonization of protocols in biobanks, Fiocruz Experience. Then Rodrigues Pereira, who is the quality manager of a clinical investigation platform. He will talk about quality management system from Fiocruz. And PhD Christian Bressani, clinical investigator of Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, will share her experiences in terms of implementing Biobank, the experience of Ageu Magalhães Fiocruz Institute in Pernambuco State. Without further ado, we have many experts, so we will proceed. Thank you for joining us, and we hope this information will be useful to all of us. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to share our experience with you. Can you hear us okay? Just checking. Yes, we can hear you. Do you see my screen? Okay. So I'll tell you about the implementation of Fiocruz network of biobanks. Before talking about the network, it's important to talk about Fiocruz, the institution where we work. Fiocruz is a public health foundation established by the Ministry of Health in Brazil. It was inaugurated in 1900. We have 124 years. We have more than 15,000 professionals, and all over Brazil, we have 16 technical and scientific units plus 4 offices. Fiocruz works in different areas like research, development, innovation, healthcare, education, information and communication, production of input for the public health system in Brazil, doing surveillance, and also with regulatory bodies. Also work in terms of science history. Talking about numbers in Fiocruz, Fiocruz acts with national and international cooperations in terms of science, technology, and innovation for the unified health system in Brazil, the SUS, and is the main non-university institution on training and qualification of human resources for SUS, also for science and technology in Brazil, reducing inequalities in health, education, and science. Fiocruz works in Brazil, but also establishing partnerships with other institutions in different countries, as we can see by the map. Here we have the distribution of scientific production. The different colors tell about how much production we have. Almost all countries in the world have some level of cooperation with Fiocruz that has resulted in partnerships and scientific production. This is one of the elements that makes Fiocruz research effective and produces results. Talking about biobanks, why establish biobanks? Well, one of the main points to establish biobanks is the advancement in researching public health, because biobanks are infrastructure that support the distribution of biological material and optimize the use of these resources to develop therapies, development and validation of diagnostic tests, epidemiological studies, genomic studies, and in our case, Fiocruz, This is all related to the diseases that we have in our health system, SUS. We also deal with the personalized medicine and innovative therapies to make the transition from basic science to the production of medicine related to the care of people. We also do epidemiological surveillance and responses to emergencies, because the material we have can be the basis to all those actions. Fiocruz have some norms and some frameworks that conduct our actions in Fiocruz. In Brazil, in 2011, we have published 2 documents that establish the guidelines to the functioning of biobanks and the accreditation of those banks, together with the National System of Ethics in Research. So this is the Resolution 441 and the Bylaw 2201. These 2 documents establish a deadline for the institutions to present their biobanks to be accredited. After that, Fiocruz started to get organized. In our scope of action, we also follow the Taipei Declaration, the recommendations on database of OECD, ISO 20387 and TR 22758 that provides implementation guidelines for ISO, and recently the law 14874 that establishes about research, human councils, and includes biobank in their scope. And they talk about the need to regulate biobanks specifically. And also it was published last year, the new version of best practice from ISDR. And Fiocruz also acts to provide the first version of this document in Portuguese, especially the Brazilian norms, including Bylaw 2201, Resolution 441, and the Law 14874 distinguish between biobanks and biorepositories. Not all countries have this difference between these 2 terms. They take both for one as a synonym, but there are differences, and we act upon those differences so that some specifications may be clear after the other presentations. In Brazil, biobanks are infrastructures that can collect and store biological material for future research with the responsibility, the institutional responsibility and management and regulation and functioning are under a protocol of development that has to be presented to our National System of Ethics in Research. The deadline to store material in biobank is unlimited. In terms of consent, there is the possibility of use the general consent, provided that the participant can choose between large or encompassing concept or a concept for each study. And the property of biological material is always from the participant. There's no donation or buying of biological material in Brazil. The rights to this material belong always to this participant. So in terms of difference between biorepositories and biobanks, in biobanks, those samples are for future use. In biorepository, they are used for a specific study. That is, they are connected to one specific study that has this consent for that study. The researcher is the manager, and the regulation of this biorepository is related to a research project under the system SAP Connect. The difference is each study that wants to use the biological material, there is the need of a new consent. There's no such thing as reusing the biological material without the consent of the participant. These are the difference between the two, biobanks and bioreservoirs in Brazil. And we are based on these differences. In our network of biobanks, we work with biobanks and with the transfer from biorepositories to biobank, so that there is this transference of the biological material, as well as the management and the deadlines and the consents. So, as I said, with the publication of 2011, there was a time for the institutions to present their biobank protocols and projects. In 2014, Fiocruz started discussion and institutional alignment so that we could discuss how to create biobanks in our institution, considering that there are different ways to act in our institution. In 2014, this Fiocruz President's bylaw was created that creates a working group connected to Vice Presidency of Research and Biological Collections to deal with this subject. In 2015, there was the establishment of the Biobank network. After many discussions, in Fiocruz, biobanks work in a network. Why? For the benefits of the network scheme, because the opposite was to have a biobank centralized. As you have seen before, Fiocruz is distributed in different states of Brazil. So in terms of logistics, as well as to encourage deposits of material, we decided to guarantee autonomy for each unit to establish their own biobank. And all the biobanks would work in a network, in a harmonized way. So we work in a network so that we have integration and more exchange of knowledge, safety, because the distribution of biological material is done in with safety. We may dilute problems that may exist because we increase the backup capacity and rescue if it is necessary, and also the impact, because it's easier to achieve local communities with these activities. In terms of decentralization, why is this done? Because it increases our capacity, and with decentralization, it's easier in terms of logistics, and we can also serve locally, regionally, and nationally, sharing access of diversified samples and standardized data. Continue on with our history. In 2016, this first working group within the Fiocruz Biobank network was established, and we defined the documents to be used by the network that would be submitted to accreditation of the first biobank in our network. The second working group has established the internal rules, define how our network would act vis-a-vis the biobanks. In 2017, we established the managing committee for our biobank network. This is the structure that takes care of the management of the network, establishing rules, analyzing elements, and evaluating the supply of biological material. With this documentation produced in 2016, we have accredited the first biobank it takes a while to accredit a biobank, especially because at the time it was all done in paper, and documents have to be sent to Brasilia, where is our controlling agency that controls biobank activities. In the next years, 2020, we have the accreditation of the second and third biobank. The first one was in Immunobiological Institute, Biomanguinhos. The second one in Instituto Oswaldo Cruz. And the third one with René Rachu, Fiocruz, Minas Gerais. This was the first outside Rio de Janeiro, which is where we are headed. In 2023, we accredit the fourth biobank called Biobank COVID-19. Now it's being restructured, and it's called Biobank for Biodiversity in Health. And our fifth one was approved last year from Gonçalo Muniz Institute in Bahia. As of 2022, so each accreditation occurred after the document of the previous biobank. So this construction was the subsidy for the next one, and so on and so on. And with each new biobank, the documents were improved. In 2023, we established harmonization activities in terms of documentation as well as activities of biobanks. We have a working group for standardization, management of samples and data. In 2023, we started another working group for operational standards. And in 2024, we have a consent working group to improve this process. So in terms of the network, our main objectives are to provide biological material with quality for research in public health, to harmonize practice and protocols amongst the biobanks, foster collaborations and guarantee ethical and legal rules. It's important to mention that all those activities are very democratic. The network does not impose actions to the biobanks, but all the actions are decided together and then established. In terms of strategies of decentralized biobanks, as I said, we have 5 accredited biobanks. You can see in the green or in the orange balls in Brazil in the map. We have 3 accredited in Rio de Janeiro, 1 in Minas Gerais, and another one in Bahia. And we have 5 biobanks that are being developed. One of them is the one in Pernambuco, and Cristiane will talk about her experience there to implement this biobank in Pernambuco. In terms of sources of biological material, our network works from 2 different sources. First, by the reuse of biological material, that is transference of biorepositories, or the collection of biological material in those studies, or outpatients care in Fiocruz, as well as partner institutions. These are our sources of biological material. As to next steps, as you said, expansion of the network is important in terms of capacity and scope for storing biological material. So new biobanks will be included, and also partnerships to include new types of biological material. We are also working so that biobanks are economically as well as environmental sustainable, and innovation in terms of adopting new technologies and new approaches for the biobank processes. In terms of storage and recovery of biological material, as well as consent and incorporation of other participants in the biobank. That was it. Thank you very much. These are my contacts, my contact in the network, and also our website, the Fiocruz portal, and we also have these in English and Spanish. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sarah will talk about our
Sarah will talk about our procedures for harmonization and quality assurance.
Microfone.
Oh, now it's working. You can hear me well? Yes. All right. So thank you, Diane, for your presentation. It was wonderful. You gave a great overview about the network itself. So now my role is just a complementing one. I'm going to talk about the harmonization of standard operational procedures in the experience of the Fiocruz Biobank network. So in accordance to our statutes, one of the precepts that we have is exactly the harmonization of the basis and functional strategies within our technical procedures, as well as the procedures that derive from the ethical and legal requirements. This is also, it falls under the responsibility of the management committee, which in addition to that responsibility, it is also responsible for ensuring the harmonization of processes in the biobanks that pertain to the network. So how has the network been thinking about the harmonization of standard operational procedures? Our harmonization is conducted in a way that it does not leave any biobank behind. It refers to an alignment of procedures exactly to ensure the compatibility between biobanks, as well as the interoperability between biobanks. In that way, we're able to respect the specificities of each biobank, as well as the alignment to minimum common aspects between these biobanks. Just a moment. Your screen sharing is in the presenting mode, the presenter mode, rather. I think you should switch to presenting mode. Just a moment. Just bear with me for a second. Now it's right. Thank you. Forgive me. Anyway, some studies have already shown that harmonized studies between biobanks produce higher quality and more reliable data. So, okay. What are some of the advantages of the harmonization of standard operational procedures? So the first one is the flexibility of local practices. There's an adaptation to the reality of each biobank by respecting their capacities and necessities, without, of course, compromising the local efficiency as well as the requirements of each facility. We also have a reduction in the complexity of processes. So with harmonization, we're able to decrease variation in the procedures between the biobanks, which ends up simplifying and improving the technological and operational integration. Another advantage is the strengthening of collaboration between biobanks within the network. With our work group, we're able to very thoroughly familiarize ourselves with the realities of each biobank and integrate better. Another advantage is the interoperability between biobanks. This exchange of information becomes more efficient and safe because it allows for this more integrated and collaborative manner of work between biobanks. Another important advantage is the alignment of practices. We're able to ensure the existence of minimum operational practices based on minimum requirements which are harmonized and compatible. So bringing it home to our own work group within the Fiocruz Biobank network, this work group came about as a way to build harmonized models for the standard operational procedures within all of the activities of the biobank, always considering the national and international norms that are in force, as well as the documents in each unit of Fiocruz. In that way, we're able to ensure compliance, the quality, interoperability, and the sustainability of these processes that are involved in these biobanks. The SOP harmonization work group started in June 2023, where we had the elaboration of a work group by this group, work plan rather, by this work group. This work plan would set out the goals for the work being done by the group. We have 16 members among curators, the technical team, the members of the management committee, as well as those responsible for quality assurance in various units of Fiocruz. We have weekly meetings that are 2 hours long, and we have a goal of harmonizing approximately 60 documents. This is a picture of a recent meeting. Still on the dynamics of our SOP harmonization work group, our group has the support of quality management, the platform for clinical research. The vice presidency of Fiocruz is connected to the network as well. We build not just SOPs, but also other documents like manuals, workflows, guidelines, and whatnot. We will also start working on the identification of priorities for the elaboration of SOPs through a good matrix, which is a priority matrix for activities. All of the documents that are built by this work group are made available through SharePoint, which is a Microsoft tool where it's possible for you to store and share information. Through it, you're also able to create access permission levels. And our idea is for these models to be reviewed at least annually or whenever necessary. So concerning the document basis for the work group. First, we raised the main practices and operational procedures already in force. So that includes the SOPs for Fiocruz units, the ones that have biobanks as well as those that don't. ISO 20387, which regulates biobank activities. We have the ISBER best practices document. In addition, we also analyzed the national and international norms in force. These are some of them. Among the national ones, we have our laws, resolutions, normative instructions, and we consult the SOPs of other biobanks and other biobank networks around the world. So how are these documents designed? First, we divide the documents that are going to be harmonized between the members. Each member becomes responsible for the elaboration of specific amount of documents. They could do it either in pairs or individually. Then we review it as a group. We review the individually designed document in the group. And lastly, we approve it by quality management and then include it within the document management system that the network adopted. So, moreover, on the quality management system of the Fiocruz Biobank network, we are currently implementing this system. We are implementing it exactly to guide us in terms of structuring the quality management system of strategy of the biobanks. And we've been doing so with the support of the clinical research platform, through which the coordination of Fiocruz Biobank network also has a work group for the implementation of this system. Well, still on the quality management system, Fiocruz establishes that the quality management system of its units must be decentralized. So the network's biobanks are also decentralized, but they work within the network. The biobanks have their own quality management systems, and they're also responsible for their own document management. The network, in turn, provides templates which are harmonized through the work groups, and the biobanks, they may incorporate these documents or the content of these harmonized documents. Interact is the document management system adopted by the Fiocruz Biobank network. So the units that have biobanks, they may use Interact or otherwise. They may use other document management system if they choose to do so. However, all of the biobanks have access to the network's documents through the system, even if they do not use it for their own benefit. They can also have access to the network documents through other means. The network has been working to make these documents more and more available to the biobanks so they can have a higher degree of reference to these documents. In the future, we will promote training of the members in the use of the Interact system as well. So concerning the role of the Fiocruz Biobank network in the document management of the biobanks, we've been conducting alignment meetings between the Fiocruz Biobank network, the biobanks, and quality management of the Fiocruz units, exactly to show them how the quality management system has been implemented, and to raise more support for this system. We've been harmonizing the SOPs of the network with the procedures of the units. So the biobanks incorporate the harmonized content into their own standard operational procedures. And the Fiocruz Biobank network also aims to ensure that the biobanks that have specific procedures, which some do, they ensure that these also have their SOPs incorporated by the templates that are harmonized by the network. And lastly, another important role of the network is exactly to raise awareness and publicize the use of these harmonized SOPs between the biobanks, the investigators, the technical teams, and the Fiocruz units. And lastly, just to conclude, a few challenges pertaining to harmonization. One of the main ones is actually the differences that we see within the institution itself, as Diane mentioned. Our institution is quite large and diverse, so the infrastructure differences between biobanks, so that could have something to do with space, available equipment, financial resources, and that all generates diversity. And that is a challenge, of course. Another challenge is the differences between the quality management systems used by these units. We have various document management systems, as well as different levels of complexity between them, between the units. Another challenge is the time required for document harmonization. That requires group commitment. It requires good time management during the meetings. And lastly, we also have another challenge, which is the need for, well, seeking experience from other groups within the institution itself for elaborating specific documents. So these are some of the challenges that I was able to list here and tell you so that you're more aware of how we've been working in terms of SOP harmonization within the network. Thank you for your time, and I'm available later for any questions. Thank you. Good afternoon. You can see my screen? Yes. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rodriguez. I'll continue on the experience of the Fiocruz Biobank network. I'll basically continue that presentation. And I will talk about the implementation process of this quality management system within the Fiocruz Biobank network. Every biobank has its own quality management system. Fiocruz has a decentralized management system. So what we are currently trying to do with all of the biobanks is to exactly implement what we call, how can I put it? The understanding of what a quality management system is. So when we think quality management systems, usually when people are not as aware of what it is, they think, oh, this means that things will become more rigid and things will get harder. And this is not the intention. As Sarah mentioned, due to the fact that each biobank has its own management system, and that added to the need of having harmonized procedure, then it becomes very important for you to have an implemented quality management system. And how is that done? So the first goal, the first objective here is for us to have a thorough understanding of the precepts of a quality management system, how we've been incorporating it into the Fiocruz Biobank network, and how important that system is to biobanks. How easier these systems make the implementation of ISO, for example, as well as these normatives that Diane mentioned. What are the benefits of our quality management system for these implementations? So before going into what a quality management system actually is, we need to start from very clear assumptions in order for us to implement a clear quality management system. So first, let's define quality. What is quality control? And then quality assurance. And then consequently, what is a quality management system? We're going to define each one of these in order to make it as clear as possible for those who work within biobanks, how this can be implemented within your either bank or network. So What is quality? Quality is adaptation to use and compliance to demands. So as Sarah mentioned, and Di as well, we have a few norms that we must follow. And the objective will always be, oh, if I want to work with ISO 20387, then the compliance needs will be in accordance to it. The second stage is that it confers characteristics of excellence to a product or service. So we need to meet the requirements of clinical practices, the resolutions of each country. Here we call it RD6. And the third point is that quality is when a product or service meets either one or more requirements or demands. So as I define what I want to meet, I will define and plan how that can be executed. And then we're left with the question, how? We need these very clear definitions of what quality control means then. So quality control ensures that the products or services do meet the specified quality requirements. In this case, what we're talking about the Fiocruz network, our standard is ISO 20387. So how can I check whether I'm fulfilling or complying with it? I will review documents, check data, the process that Sarah has just described. So our initial planning was summarized by that. So quality assurance, it ensures the fulfillment of the established quality requirements. So quality assurance is focused on providing reliability and ensure that all of the activities are taking place in a controlled manner. They're verifiable, they're trackable, and fall within the established quality requirements. So it is important for us really to provide that reliability so that we can provide it to internal and external clients. What do I mean by internal and external clients? As Sarah mentioned, they created a work group through which various biobanks are harmonizing their SOPs, their standard operational procedures, in order for the Fiocruz network to have a single standard. We can characterize that as an internal client. And each biobank may have their external client, their researchers that deposit samples or whatnot. In order for quality assurance to take place, we need auditing tools, training, and of course, never forget ethical and regulatory services, as Diane mentioned. Again, in Brazil, there's a difference between a biobank and a biorepository, and each region will have their ethical regulatory delimitations. And it's important to take that into account. And then the famous quality management system, rather. It is basically a set of interconnected or interactive elements within an organization that establish policies, objectives, and processes that will be required to meet the goals, the quality-related goals. So what does this mean? A quality management system involves procedures, processes, and responsibilities that are clearly defined, which then help an organization to meet their policies, objectives, and processes. So it is important to highlight as well that the elaboration and implementation of these procedures is one of the mechanisms. Within quality management systems, we also have non-compliance management, risk management, critical analysis, auditing, and all of that I will explain in a bit. So with these definitions out of the way, we can understand that a quality management system and its importance is due to the fact that it does not only ensure the final quality of the product or service, it encompasses all of the process stages. So if we want to meet the requirements of ISO 23887, it's important for us to understand what a quality management system is, because only through it, we can ensure that quality control and quality assurance are fully in place. So how do we start implementing and running and managing these quality management systems? How do we control of these processes? We need to define personnel first. So we need procedures that clearly describes the competencies for each activities, as well as how they are selected, trained, and qualified. Because without people, nothing is possible. Of course, never forgetting the ethical and biosecurity requirements of each country. Another very important aspect is the equipment and systems that are being utilized. They must be appropriate to the intended use. What do I mean by this? They must be regularly checked as needed. Again, our ISO has that requirement in order to ensure the reliability of data precision. So this is extremely important for us to have the appropriate equipment and systems for the intended uses. Another important topic is the methodology. Quality management systems must define what is the methodology that is going to be used in order to run this system. So how these procedures are going to be used, how these management practices and procedures will be used. Methodologies is very much about making people understand what is the importance of their roles. What do I mean by this? A manager could create a procedure and deliver it to a sector and say, execute this, but this does not work. As Sarah mentioned again, we are standardizing and harmonizing biobanks. So it would be best for each biobank to speak on their own reality in order for us to find a common path to elaborate our harmonization. And that way we ensure not just that we are meeting the requirements of legislation, but also that it will make sense to the institution that will use it. Because when we create a procedure that is not well communicated or in which no one participates, it becomes just a document for auditors, as we usually say. And supplies, of course, supplies must be appropriate to the specifications demanded by processes. So in order for me to have a quality management system, I need to define the document structure. I need to have control over documents, of course. I need to map my processes so that everyone is aware what everyone is going to be doing, what is going to be required of everyone. I need to standardize procedures. I need to have a training policy in order for everyone to be equally trained in the procedures that are going to be run. I need to have improvement management, which includes compliance management. I must continuously check the need for improving this process. Risk management. Every process has risk, so risk management is very important. And internal auditing. Through these audits, I will know whether everything I planned and am executing is making sense for that institution. And after the audits, I will do critical analysis exactly in order to have that process not just mapped, but for this process to be analyzed between stakeholders.
I start all that? That's the importance of the quality system. They offer tools that we use. Sometimes we don't know how they are called. So it's very important that the PDCA cycle is followed. So it teaches us planning. Before and foremost, we have to plan what we are going to execute. We have to define our objectives, choose the methods we are going to use, and then write it all down and start executing. The second step is execution. After I establish everything, I will work in a team. I will do the training process on the methods used, and then I will carry out the work. When our network has planned all those actions, this is what we did. We planned, we are executing. One of the tools Sarah is doing is harmonization. We are working with the team, and then with execution, we are able to check if the planning is what it takes to the execution of the work. Is the standard that was established working? If it is, okay, but if it's not, we have to analyze. Action is the last point of PDCA. We analyze, and if necessary, we make changes. So it's not cast in stone. It only asks that things are standardized and documented so that we can see and establish criteria and understand where do we need to improve. This cycle PDCA is something that will work many times because you have planned, you started executing, you see it's not working, no problem. You go back, you change your plan of action. So this cycle PDCA, especially comparing to ISO 23387, it helps us ensure the continuous improvement of the biobank system, guarantee reliability and traceability of the samples. It helps risk management in terms of reducing operational risks, and it facilitates internal and external auditing for accreditation. And it also improves the operational efficiency, optimizing resources and minimizing waste. The use of this cycle strengthens the use of biobank with the quality, the safety of the samples, make it easier to comply to the ISO norm, and it increases the credibility of the institution vis-a-vis its scientific partners. When we talk about quality management, I like this picture because we have to understand how important it is to have it all documented. There's a difference between a change. A change is different from an improvement. Change has to be identified, tested, and then implemented. When we have this management system, quality management system, we can identify the process, the item of the process that has to be changed. So a change not always means an improvement, because an improvement needs to have a positive impact in some indicator. When a process is not standardized, I can do it one way and you another. So we don't know if it's working. That's why it's important to put everybody together, have this harmonization process. So when we get to our process, any changes that are necessary, we will be sure that this change will be identified, tested, and it will result into an improvement. When we don't have this quality management process, we can guarantee that all changes will mean an improvement, because the improvement considers a change in a process or in a system. When we don't have the management system, any changes we make, we cannot identify if this will result in some improvement. This is another example of the importance of the quality management system when we implement it. And why have you talked about this quality management system? Because we were considering the ISO, which is our guideline that we use in Brazil, but it's an international guideline because it establishes general requirements for the activity of the biobank. This includes collection, obtain, acquisition, deposit, registration, classification, storage, distribution, and transportation. It requires biobanks to have processes for all those actions. So when you have a quality management system already implemented, it's much easier to create all those processes so that you can meet what ISO demands. Another thing they demand is that they comply to ethical and regulatory legislations vis-a-vis biosafety and bioprotection, so that we can reproduce the research. Once we have our quality management system implemented, when we take ISO to be implemented in our biobank, it's much easier because you just have to adapt your system to the specific needs of the ISO norm. As an example, in item 4.1 in ISO, they state that you have to have procedures for all activities related to the biobank, according to local legislation for material and associated data. And information have to be generated inside a quality management system that is implemented. ISO itself demands that the biobank has this quality management system because they understand that. So when you don't have that quality management system, it's very difficult to control and proceed with all those improvement actions that we have discussed. They also want you to identify people who carry out those activities. When I said about how do we control the processes and people was number one, ISO also understands that people is the center of everything. When you don't have these people and the people trained in the activities, you cannot meet what ISO demands from us. And the other item we have is risk management and opportunities to improve. Once you have the quality management system implemented, when you reach ISO again, you just have to adjust your system to the standards that ISO demands. Once we have a quality management system implemented, we can meet all guidelines. It's just a matter of fine-tuning this or that procedure. But the management system, as we mentioned before, already meets all those requirements naturally. The other item also in ISO is impartiality. That's important to have documented processes, including the SOPs and the records, so that we can prove the criteria we use in each biobank, that they are impartial. So for each criteria or for each criteria that we adopted, we always have to do the risk management of that process. Confidentiality is very important. That's why we have to test the systems we use, because each system that we use, we have to document and test the system in terms of safety and confidentiality. Another item, the last one that ISO demands from us. There are other items, of course, but once we have the quality management system, we are already meeting the requirements. I just wanted to highlight those items. And this, number 8, the last one, ISO demands requirements from the quality management systems of the biobanks. Once we have this system, we already meet ISO demands, and we won't have problems with any other type of legislation that the biobank has to meet. That was all. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I will now present to you the last part of this presentation cycle. I will talk about the experience I have in implementing a biobank in my Fiocruz unit. Can you see my screen? Well, I'm Cristiane. I'm a clinical researcher, as mentioned before. I'm a researcher at Fiocruz in one of their units in the northeast of Brazil. Brazil is a huge country, as you all know. And I'm a researcher. I started in Fiocruz as a researcher in 2019. So it's been 6 years I'm working at Fiocruz. And I'd like to share with you this experience, because as soon as I started working as a researcher in Fiocruz, Pernambuco, this movement was starting so that our unit could have a biobank. So now I will speak about this experience. I'll share with you this experience that may be an example to another service or another team. I'll share with you my own personal and professional points of view. And at the end, I'll be available for questions. Well, as Diane mentioned, this map shows the units that Fiocruz has throughout Brazil. And I would like to start showing you a biobank. It's quite huge. We can handle millions of samples. It's already accredited, and it is located in the southeast of Brazil, close to the headquarters of Fiocruz in Rio de Janeiro. You can see by the images that's a well-structured biobank with modern technology. If you are interested to know more about the development of this biobank that started as a biobank for COVID-19, but then was increased, the scope was amplified so that it is a biobank for human health and biodiversity. So this biobank will collect and store in the long range samples from human beings and from other species also from Brazil's biodiversity. This is a paper you can read about this experience of this first biobank that was accredited in our network. This is a scheme of this biobank. We call it Biobank for Biodiversity and Health. It will collect human biological material, virus collections from the environment, and also will we'll have a backup of some of the biological collections that the Fiocruz already has. And I want to show you our example here in the Northeast. When I started, I thought Biobank would have to be a huge structure as the first one I showed you. But that's not so. Biobank can be a very simple structure like the one we are creating here in the Northeast of Brazil with a very simple structure, just one deep freezer and another one as a backup, and a small team in a small space. Let me tell you about this journey. Since I joined the Fiocruz in 2019, what have we done since then? As a researcher, as part of this wonderful team, just to remind you what Diane said, it all started back in 2014 when Fiocruz took the first step to establish a biobank system to keep samples in the long range, following the rules between the institutions. Then there was the bylaw creating the Biobank network in Fiocruz. Another norm created the managerial committee in which we are included of the Biobank Fiocruz network. At Fiocruz, Pernambuco, it's also called Ageu Magalhães Institute. Our work started in 2018 when the directorate of our institution showed interest in establishing our own biobank unit here. In 2019, that's when I joined Fiocruz. We started to participate in the managerial committee, in the meetings, and we started learning about this subject that I believe is a thing of the future. So myself and Janaína Miranda, who is the curator of the future biobank. We have the physical space, but we have not been accredited yet. So we have not started our activities. We started participating in this committee in 2020. Everything was put to a halt due to the pandemic. In 2021, we resumed. We established an internal working group in our unit here in Pernambuco, and the Research Vice-Rectorate established the working group of the future Ageu Magalhães Institute Biobank that we call BIA. In 2022, we started to consider a development protocol. This is the document where we detail the biobank infrastructure, everything related to the samples we want to collect here, all our processes. We started to study this protocol with the help of Biobank Fiocruz network, especially Dr. Diane Sertório. To start, we suggested a protocol based on rare diseases, and later on we increased our scope. This was interesting because we realized it was interesting to have a biobank with a broader scope, even if in the beginning we only focus on a certain disease or a certain population. And then in November 2022, the directory of our institution, IAM, has signed the documents confirming and assuming the responsibility of starting implementing the BIA, the biobank in our institution. In 2023 and 24, we worked a lot. Janaína and me, we engaged in the production of the SOPs, the Standard Operational Procedures. Sara and Rodrigues have already explained about the SOPs. So we are actively participating in the elaboration of these SOPs. This has been very valuable because besides learning a lot, we bring in to our institution, to our unit, this harmonization. And we also talk about our needs, our local needs, and our knowledge, of course. This is so that we do not forget. You can see that ISO 23887 is the major star this afternoon because our presentation mentioned this ISO norm. It's very important that in the biobank activity, not only are we compliant to the local norms among the institutions in Brazil, but also that we comply with international norms because biobank is about sharing and not confining samples and data. If we consider sharing in the future, it's very important that since the beginning, this is in harmony with the institutions in Brazil as well as abroad. After all this time, since 2019, last October 24, we have inaugurated our small space at Ageu Magalhães Institute. Here you see Janaína Miranda, our curator, the director, Mr. Pedro Miguel, the vice director, Mr. Manuel, and a very important researcher, Dr. Norma Lucena. She's an associate researcher because we are associated to a major project that she leads, a national project. Due to her contribution, we were able to have the physical building, the physical structure, even before we establish our protocol for development. This is a blueprint so that you have an idea. All this space in blue is the area that was dedicated to this project of Dr. Lucena. This is called the Genomas Feast, the genomic network for the Northeast that we call Regene. And this is related to another project, which is Genomas Brazil, which is to establish the complete genome of the Brazilian population with all its ethnical mixture. And this small area, more than 10 square meters, is equivalent to our biobank. It's a small rectangle that can, depending on the equipment we can get, we can even store up to 200 biosamples, from 80 to 200, depending on the type of equipment we are able to get to our institution. And we continue on working between 2024 and 25. We associated to this group who has been translating iceberg manual. I think Diane mentioned about this iceberg, which is an international society dedicated to the study and harmonization of processes for environmental repositories and biological samples. So we are participating in a group certified by ISBER, where we are translating into Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and Portugal Portuguese. This has been very enriching experience because we work together with the Portuguese researchers, and we've all been learning a lot. And I hope soon we will have this version in Portuguese to share with you. Let me go back just to mention that I start realizing how important it is that beside creating the network in Brazil, how important it is to establish those bridges with other countries, especially in our region. So that's how I think it's important to mention the Global Health Network initiative. It all started before I even joined Fiocruz. I used to do some research and I knew the Global Health Network. This is in Oxford University originally, but it's very much focused in low-income regions of the world. I'd like you to know this network. If you don't, you can register in the platform because this initiative puts together a great number of resources and member groups. This is very interesting because they talk about clinical research. Just as an example, you go and you find many resources that can support you to design studies and to get financing and do networking.
It also houses various other hubs of various initiatives across the world. Here you can see the Latin American and Caribbean pillar of the Global Health Network, and two pillars which are also just as strong in Asia and Africa. And we also have a specific hub for Fiocruz. In 2019, Fiocruz signed an MOU with TGHN, and we started working in very strict collaboration. In the hub page, you can find the Fiocruz hub, and within it, in research production, there's specific section just on biobanks. We actively collaborate with the Fiocruz Biobank network in feeding these pages, also in other languages, including Spanish and Portuguese. So within the work that the Global Health Network, Latin America and Caribbean, and with the collaboration with them, they started collaborating with the Cayetano University, which resulted in this afternoon's meeting. And there was also the creation of a research club. We gained our own website within the LAC TGHN link. Through this QR code, you can access it very easily. We will continuously feed this page with resources that we find interesting for biobanks, especially with content in Portuguese and Spanish. This is an example of the banner that we created for this event. We disseminated it over here and also through our channels, the Fiocruz and TGHN LAC channels. And I'd just like to conclude by saying that the local next stages for the network are, well, with the important support of the Fiocruz Biobank network, we are already finalizing the protocol for development of biobanks to present our ethics and research platform. We have a very strict ethics and research platform in Brazil. And we're going to present a protocol for it to be appreciated, so that then we start our activities in biobanks here in our Recife unit. We are also developing other scientific papers in collaboration with the Peruvian University Cayetano Heredia, on the Fiocruz Biobank network. We also brought into the collaboration the Universidad Científica del Sur, of course, in partnership with the Global Health Network. Medical students from all over the world will also be able to contribute. So we have 2 ongoing projects now. So I'd just like to conclude with my sincere thanks to all teams. My father is actually Peruvian, and I just like to apologize for not having presented in Spanish. I am fluent in Spanish, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to promote Portuguese as well. I'm currently also studying Spanish to be fully fluent. And I'd just like to say that for that reason, and also due to the fact that I'm married to a Peruvian citizen, this is a picture of us from almost 15 years ago in the surroundings of Lima. We have been married for 14 years. This is just, just a fun fact about me. And I just like to highlight how important it is for me to have this exchange between Brazil and Peru. Hopefully it will be long lasting. Thank you. I also leave here. Where is it? I will present, well, I'll get the QR code here. Yeah, it's easier here. Through this QR code, you can answer a survey in terms of your interest in participating in the Biobank club, the Biobank network. Thank you so much to the speakers for their excellent presentations. We will now have a round of questions and answers in which participants will also be able to send in their questions to the Q&A button. Let's start with the first question that was sent in. So the titularity of the sample still belongs to the supplier, to the patient who provided it. Thank you for the question. So belonging remains with the participant, of course. At any point, they can withdraw their consent and request the disposal of the biological material. In terms of anonymization, the biobanks of the Fiocruz network work with the consent of their participants. So in these cases, the samples are identified in the biobanks, but in order for them to be transferred to the researchers, there is a process of anonymization. So for the use, yes. In accordance to Brazilian regulation, we have the duty of delivering the research results back to the participants, especially those that impact or possibly impact the health of these participants. So we only receive anonymized procedures in very specific cases. COVID-19 was an example in which Fiocruz acted very directly in diagnosing diseases. So these samples were transferred to our biobanks in an anonymous manner, as there was no possibility of getting in touch with these participants again and requesting their consent. So we made that specific request. So in a general manner, the logic is that it is not anonymized through the biobank itself, but for the transfer, yes. Thank you. So let's continue with the next question. Are you currently accredited by the aforementioned ISO? Good afternoon, Osmar. So ISO is one of the accrediting agents. And in Brazil, our accreditation process will begin this year, actually. One of our biobanks has volunteered for this initial accreditation process, alongside in Metro, of course, which is the accrediting agent here in Brazil. So we currently do not have accreditation because there is no accreditation within Brazil. It is currently being built. However, we fully intend to accredit the biobanks as soon as the procedure is available. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Let's continue to the next question. The question is, would it be possible for you to provide an example of economic sustainability in the context of biobanks? That is indeed an excellent question, John. So this is a public institution after all. Resources are not always abundant. Also, within our context, there's the issue that biologic material, human and otherwise, cannot be commercialized. However, there's no impediment for the recovery of costs. So one of our biobanks is currently working on a cost recovery model. So these are operational costs, of course. And then draft a proposal for economic sustainability for biobanks. There are already some international models in that sense. So in terms of economic sustainability, as you mentioned, it is in that sense, seeking public resources as well as the recovery of operational costs. Thank you for the question. Thank you so much. So let's continue. What are some of the requirements for the registry of biobanks? Another excellent question. It will fully depend on the country where that biobank is located. In Brazil, we have an operational norm that accounts for the documents that need to be presented. Operational norm number 1, its attachment lists the documents that must be presented. These documents include a declaration of institutional responsibility, in which the institution becomes responsible for the financial and technical elements for maintaining the biobank. A declaration of management that presents those who are responsible for running the biobank and its operations. A declaration of commitment towards sending reports to the National Research Ethics Committees. An internal statute that defines the operations of the biobank, its structure, what is the HR structure and how that supports the biobank. The presentation of the standard operational procedures that will be used by the bank, especially those that concern the collection, processing, storage, and disposal of biological material. Also, the type of information that will be collected from participants and concerning the samples. The terms of consent to be provided. So for various ages, of course, as well as for people who do not have full autonomy, and consent for adults and legal guardians. So these are the minimum documents that must be presented here in Brazil in order for the registration of a biobank. This entire submission is done through the Brazil platform, as Cristiane showed you. I said that our first biobank was accredited on paper. So for a long time, it has evolved and it continues to evolve. Today, in Brazil, the accreditation of a biobank is done alongside the Brazil platform. There was a document published, I believe, in 2021 or 2022. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a document that accounts for the norms that regulate the registration of biobanks in the CEP-CONEP systems using the same structure. 2021, yes. The accreditation of research projects. Yes, thank you. So yes, in 2021, this document was published and it provides a full step-by-step guide on how to fill out the required fields in the Brazil platform for the registration of a biobank. All right. I will support Henry in the English and Portuguese questions. So first we have a question by André. Whether it's possible for another public body to use a biobank in the Fiocruz network, whether there's already a defined procedure for that. So Sarah, would you like to reply? Yes. Thank you for the question. So the answer is yes. And simply speaking, it is possible for public bodies to use the Fiocruz biobanks. The network stores human material to make it available for the scientific community. Of course, the availability priority is for the institution itself, for Fiocruz, for incentivizing research within the institution. However, consultation for the availability of materials for other bodies is, of course, possible and encouraged. So the curators and the management committee, they analyze these requests, and then the material may be made available as well. And it can also receive material for storage within our biobanks, whether there's a cost. So as Dai mentioned, in Brazil, we cannot commercialize human biological material that is stored in biobanks or in biorepositories. But of course, there are costs involved in these biologic material transfers. So transportation or material, whether the collection needs to be done. So these are all stages that need to be agreed upon between the stakeholders. Thank you so much, Sarah. I will take some of the Portuguese questions, and in the last few minutes, each one may make their final remarks. So about these systems, so please feel free to respond. Cristina is asking, what are the systems that you use for data management in your archives? And Amanda is asking about the sample management system. Which one is used and what are the challenges of the clinical body for collecting samples? That's an excellent question. There's no biobank that's possible without a sample and data management system. That is really the core of biobanks. So within the Fiocruz Biobank network, we use two systems for the registration and management of this information. We use RedCap for data entries and on iBanks for the management of this information. Well, also responding to Amanda's question, the challenges related to the clinical body and collecting samples. Well, within Fiocruz, we do not collect samples just from outpatient environments or clinics. We have two elements there. In terms of outpatient units, we use the logic of using the same samples, especially in terms of blood. So the proposal is not to increase the workload of the clinical staff, and the technical team of the biobanks provides support to the data collection. So you exactly don't increase the workload on the clinic staff. And the researchers, they share the procedures that they will use in their research with the biobanks, their SOPs, their or whatnot. The biobank assesses that and has a discussion with the researcher. They discuss any required adjustments, if any, in order for the samples to be incorporated into the biobank. So everything works based on alignment and alignment between these different parties. So I hope I answered your question, Amanda and Cristiane. Thank you, Dayani. Thank you for your answers. There's a very good question here about the challenges in training the personnel within a biobank network. What are the challenges in that? That is another great question. I usually say here in the network is that when we're talking about a network, that means people. You know, as someone said today, nothing here is top down. It's all about the people and everything is discussed with everyone so that we're able to arrive at a solution that is feasible for everyone. So the challenges are time. Time is an element that weighs heavy on us. But when we work together, we may move slowly, but we will reach our goals. So the diversity in expertise levels, personalities, the elements that are brought by each member of staff and even each unit, they're a challenge, that diversity. It may seem hard, but to those who come in later, they find it is easier because nothing needs to be created from scratch. So the entire knowledge base, the operations, the documentation is already there. So to those who are coming in and adding to the network and, having the opportunity of establishing biobanks in Fiocruz, they benefit from that accumulated know-how. If they were to do it by themselves, they would not have access to that. So the democratic decision-making of, always listening to all of these stakeholders, it is challenging, but it works. It has worked since the beginning. Ever since we decided to create a network instead of having a centralized biobank. Since the beginning, Fiocruz is really attentive towards its various stakeholders. It is part of our strategy, and I believe it is best. So yeah, listen to all of these stakeholders and ensure that the best solution is found through that path, although it may not be the easiest. Thank you so much for the question and for the answer. And the last question goes to Rodriguez. It comes from Regina. Why is it possible in some countries to become accredited through the ISO, and in some countries it is not? It's not required. Usually the biobanks are accredited. The difference between a certification and an accreditation is because that the certification is a technical certification. It usually ensures a management system. So ISO 9001 provides that certification. And if there are a few countries that do it the other way around, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's the difference between accreditation and certification. And usually the biobank ISO provides an accreditation. I do not have the knowledge of a biobank related certification, only accreditation. The last one about the recording. We shared an interest registry link on the chat if you are interested in being contacted by email on the subject. And back to you. Thank you so much to all the speakers. So let's move to the final remarks. All right. Thank you so much. The presentations were truly excellent, very high level. So in the name of our Research and Investigation Center, I'd just like to thank all of the speakers for sharing their time, for sharing their expertise and knowledge. Thank you so much to Fiocruz and to the Fiocruz Biobank Network, to the Global Health Network, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Office of Biosecurity for organizing this webinar. Thank you so much to all of the participants for your interest, and hopefully we can count on you for our next events. Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Go ahead. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing our experience. It is always a pleasure for us to be able to support other institutions in sharing our knowledge, our experience. Thank you so much, and we remain available to you. I also believe it's important to note that the questions that went unanswered will be answered at a later date and sent. The answer will be sent into your email. Chat is open. Thank you to the participants who were present here in this webinar. I saw there were a few questions about other organisms in addition to human biological materials. We have a biological samples department that works with microbiological samples. So that's another source of biological materials for research purposes. So, any other final remarks? Thank you. Yes, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Henri. Let's keep at it. Yes. Thank you as well. It's a great opportunity for us to exchange experiences and know a bit more about the Cayetano Energy University. Thank you to the Global Health Network for the opportunity as well. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and for any question or comment that you may have, our contact information is in the slides.